Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Fronteras A Changing America. I'm Anthony Moreno. There's been growing concern that actions at the federal level may impact public lands in New Mexico. Joining us now to share more about what is happening is Ángel Peña, Executive Director of the Nuestra Tierra Conservation Project. Ángel, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate the time.
I'd like to start off with just that, the concern that some folks have about what may happen with public lands due to actions at the federal level. NPR reported this month that lawyers for President Trump's administration says that he has the authority to abolish national monuments. What are your concerns about this?
Well, there's a ton. The communities that these national monuments call home really fought for decades on end, getting creative and being ambitious and being stubborn until they saw their special places protected because they understood not only the quality of life that they could provide for their kids, but also economically. And so these communities and the conservation community as a whole is very concerned because this would not only put us back decades, but really hold us or push us back in the progress that we've made, specifically around equitable access to our amazing places and locations.
So how does this move and the concern around this impact the mission of your organization?
Yes, so the Nuestra Tierra Conservation Project, the team and I wake up every day to ensure that deliberately, historically excluded communities not only have access to the outdoors, but have access to the public land management process. The Nuestra Tierra Conservation Project has been taking these threats very seriously. Our public lands and waters have often been seen as a defining feature of our nation's shared heritage and culture. And this would really take a pair of scissors to the progress that we've made. And so when you ask me what we're doing, Nuestra Tierra, we're taking a breath. We're investing here in Las Cruces, here in the state of New Mexico, getting families outside again so that we too can get out of this panic state and just remind ourselves why these places are worth fighting for. This is not a sprint. This is absolutely a marathon we're in.
Your organization works to connect borderland communities to our public lands in the area. I know your organization has done a lot of work to connect folks in our region to the National Monument, the Organ Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument. There's been concern about protecting that monument with some of these talks at the federal level of possible proposed cuts with national monuments. What are your concerns specifically about the national monument here in Las Cruces?
So we've been here before, right? That's what I always tell the staff and our partners in our community. We've been here. Trump 1.0 or the Trump administration 1.0 threatened us with that, and we were able to show up strong. I am excited for us to again be relentless about elevating and amplifying the voices that have everything to lose. And so that's what we are. We're taking care of home. We're taking care of our families, our abuelitas, and our neighbors, so that when the fight does come specifically to us, we're prepared, we have the trust, we have the energy, and the language to be effective in that pushback.
How have your partners in the community responded to these concerns, and what is that dialogue like with those folks who are your partners in the community?
100%. And when you say partners, I got to call out, it's the abuelitas to folks like the Semilla Project, to folks like the New Mexico Wilderness Alliance and the Friends of Organ Mountain Desert Peaks. We're in strong partnership with them. I know there was a press conference just yesterday with the congressman, and seeing those tactics being executed is exactly what we need right now. And the Nuestra Tierra Conservation Project is working to support all those initiatives, as well as building a game plan for that federal surgically strategic pushback that we may have to implement.
If there was a possible cut to the size of the Organ Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument. How do you think that would impact the community here?
You know, the kids and I, the families and I, my staff and I, we spend a lot of time in our Oregon Mountain Desert Peaks, and that's just our close little circle. There would be grave impacts to not only access, but mental well-being, personal health, and so not excited to see that come down to all of us, and not to mention the economy. There are many reports. I think we just saw the Colorado and the Conservation of the West Pole earlier produced this year by some of our partners up there in Colorado, but really not only talked about the cultural, the traditional, the health aspects, but the money piece. And Las Cruces, we're a smaller community, we're growing, absolutely, but the Organ Mountain Desert Peaks and our public lands are a driving factor of how successful we have become since the designation of OMDP 11 years ago. And so that's, I think, what makes me nervous.
What have been some of the things you've seen happen in the local economy here since the monument has been designated?
I know a couple of years after the designation of the monument, there was a ton of reports. I think Headwater Economics, the Colorado and the Conservation in the West Pole were signaling that we had about 104% increase in GDP just down here in Doña Ana County because of people wanting to come here, wanting to be part of this community and share the experiences that we have every day.
So what are some of those examples at the local level? I know we've had some small businesses be able to take advantage with perhaps apparel, clothing, things like that. Anything else you've seen that has been helpful to small businesses in the local economy?
Yeah, I think, so we had wines, right, created in the name of Organ Mountain Desert Peaks. We have had the Organ Mountain Desert Peak hot dog and hamburger. We even saw one of the breweries have a Desert Peaks a drink. But bigger than that, I think it will set a tone for the community. And that is what makes me most nervous, because it'll tamper the ambitions of our local business owners that we are so proud of here in Las Cruces.
Well, how do you feel the monument has really made an impact to really branding Las Cruces as a tourism destination?
I love that. I was just in the Bay Area a couple of weeks ago, was checking in with conservation partners and philanthropic partners, and at dinner there was this one individual talking about that he had been to a place where the mountains change colors, and I just, being from here, I was like, oh, you're talking about the Oregons. And this guy who I'd never met before, he goes, yes, in Las Cruces. And so our Organ Mountain Desert Peaks are really, in my heart, the front teeth of this community. It's the first thing you see when you see a big smile, and truly has become a defining feature of this place, the people, and when you run the numbers, our economy.
So what sort of events has your organization been able to really do to help connect with the community? A number of folks in the community that you may invite to these events may not actually have had a lot of experience with public lands and outdoor recreation. Can you share a little bit about that?
100%, and you're absolutely right, Anthony. Every time we host one of our events, whether it be Iluminando las Montañas, that we partner with the BLM up there in the Oregons proper, or we host our river float. We own La Mancha, some private land down there in the Mesilla Valley that we're really prioritizing to create more equitable access and a gateway to the Oregons, because they can be a little intimidating. Every time, we've been doing this for 6 years, there are a number of people that just thank us for the invitation, because they didn't see themselves being able to get out into these wild places, into these beautiful, amazing places. And they always say, we made so many memories with the kids. What else do you suggest? Oh, well, get up to the Organ Mountains. And then we have a number of stories about how thankful they are, because they see themselves represented in this place. They see themselves being able to succeed and explore in this place. And it has really not only moved our membership at the Nuestra Tierra Conservation Project, but across the community, and very excited to, and privileged to have been part of that. Yeah.
How do you feel the monument has made an impact on really like the culture of our borderland region?
That's a great question. I would say one of our strongest partners is the Isleta del Sur Pueblo. We partner with them a number of times a year, a couple times a year, to just get their kiddos up here, to experience these places and to remind everybody that these places, the Organ Mountain Desert Peaks, isn't important or only isn't special right now. It has been the defining feature of this region for millennia. And it's always exciting and heart-fulfilling to be able to take that lived and learned experience to the next generation.
Speaking of the next generation, how does your organization introduce public lands to the next generation who may be taking the reins as public landowners as they grow older?
Yes, so the conservation community, and these are my thoughts for sure as the executive director of Nuestra Tierra, but the conservation community, I think, has not done a great job of building up the pipeline you're talking about. How are we encouraging, mentoring the next leaders of this space, of this issue, of this sector? And we identified that problem early on, this idea was born on the back of a napkin in like 2018. But we were the drivers and the originators of the first of its kind New Mexico Outdoor Equity Fund. Our theory of change was not just to get kids outside, not just to create experiential learning opportunities that then in themselves, amazing and powerful, but really to help cultivate the next generation of leaders. You go outside, you care about outside, you learn the threats, you learn about the opportunities, and all of a sudden you're running for city council or you're a congressman, and really have the power to make sure that the vision that is Las Cruces, the foundation that is Las Cruces, gets to own that in perpetuity, hopefully. Yeah.
Now, your organization obviously has, connected the next generation with a lot of public lands in our region, talks, educational opportunities. How do you think this has perhaps expanded the lens for some young people of like what may be possible here in this area and in their lifetime with their future goals on what they might choose to do for a career?
You know what, I just, the most recent example, and the one I'm just so proud of, and we have a couple of these, but the Nuestra Tierra Conservation Project, we put forward a small scholarship for students here at New Mexico State University, the David Souls Scholarship. A great leader, great conservationist, great mentor of mine, 100%. We had a scholarship recipient, Eduardo Magallanes, who was a student here at the New Mexico State University, then became an intern with Nuestra Tierra, then became a staffer at Nuestra Tierra, and now is in Wichita Falls flying jets and a potential recipient of the program to be one of the United States astronaut. And so very excited to see how investing in our culture, our traditions, and our families, this not only builds the confidence, but the energy to like, hey, let's have our dreams challenge our ambitions. And it's hard to not blame public lands for that type of confidence, 100%.
How do you feel your organization has been able to break barriers that may exist between our borderland communities and outdoor recreation?
Not without a lot of energy, not without of crazy ideas that don't work. But I do think the New Mexico Outdoor Equity Fund, just this year, we saw the state of New Mexico really own that and want to invest in that in a great way. And we're seeing tens of thousands of young children not only having the access, but again, seeing themselves in these places, and then hopefully challenging the process as it is, and helping us build a broader and bigger public land system.
Your organization obviously has worked to break barriers that may exist between borderland communities and the outdoor recreation industry. How have you been able to do that? What were some of the challenges that you feel exist within that industry so they recognize borderland communities?
Yes, appreciate that question. It wasn't too long ago when you saw these outdoor brands and you saw the front pages of the people who were wearing the puffy coats or the fancy jackets, really didn't look like us down here in southern New Mexico. And with great partnership and acknowledgement of the outdoor industry's need to be better, we can see that when we go up to northern New Mexico, because down here you don't have some of those big stores, which is something we're still working on, because we too love to get outside down here on the border, on the Frontera here in southern New Mexico. But when you go to some of those bigger brands, you start to see people who look like us. You start to hear stories that really resonate with us. To be an outdoor recreationist doesn't mean you have to conquer all the 14ers in Colorado. It can actually mean that we're going to have a discada out at the Organ Mountain Desert Peaks. And a lot of work needs to be done with our outdoor recreational partners, but and leaders and brands. But I do think they have been making better moves 100%, because representation matters.
So with that whole issue, how do you feel that can really make an impact on our dialogue with public lands, and why it may be an issue that other communities need to be aware of? What I'm trying to ask you is, why should all communities care about this issue?
Because our public lands and waters, these places have been the source of origin for millennia. And we've always been part of these places until recently. And so it's more of a reminder so that we can not only care for them, enjoy them, but remind ourselves as a culture and as a people that it's hard to take public lands and people and talk about them in two different ways. We need to be talking about our public lands and waters and people. And so tons of work still needs to be done, but if we're really going to drive forward the 21st century of conservation that not only looks like us, feels like us, but really provides for the needs of our communities, we need to keep that pressure endlessly applied.
The Borderland region obviously is a bilingual community as well. How has your organization been able to bridge that language gap that may exist with some of these events and opportunities?
So I think there are some easy tactics, right? Making sure that we have bilingual information, making sure that we're talking to the right people in the right way, I think is the bigger question. Anthony, I know I've asked you this question before, so this is almost a test. What is one of the busiest seasons for our public lands down here in southern New Mexico?
Well, I would think, it is probably the fall, I would imagine, or the spring.
Anthony, I've asked you this before. It's Easter.
Oh, Easter. Okay.
It's Easter. It's Easter because.
Well, I've been telling everybody to come down in the fall.
Yeah. So do it. Yeah. I think they should always come down. But just the metrics tell us that our public land agencies collect that Easter, especially down here in southern New Mexico, is when they see the most traffic out on our public lands. And it's not because they want to hike. It's because they want to be together with their family. And down here we have bigger families, and we're better to do it than in our wide open spaces, for sure.
How do you really build on the momentum that your organization has been able to do recently? Obviously, this may be a challenging time for a lot of outdoor recreational organizations and conservation groups. So I'm kind of curious, what are some of the things you're talking about with those who are volunteering with your group and are taking the time and perhaps investing in your organization?
Yeah, in this time, and just the public land sector and the conservation community, there's a lot of panic. There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of visions that we're making progress that all of a sudden, due to federal policies, are forcing us to be a little bit scattered, feels like. What we're doing at the Nuestra Tierra Conservation Project is slowing down and reinvesting in our local community, making time for handshakes, eye contact, floating the river. For us, conservation is the consequence of the deliberate cultivation of community. And so what we are doing right now is bringing people together.
You mentioned the river. Of course, it's flowing right now at this time.
It is.
And how does that impact our area? And give you opportunities to connect communities to not only the Rio, but like our community in general and the public lands that are around us?
Yeah, our river doesn't flow year round, as you know. And I know the kids and me, we're in it as often as possible. And a flowing river down here not only allows us an opportunity to recreate, an opportunity to create memories with one another, but it's also kind of a learning and teaching opportunity for the kids and the families down here. We can remind ourselves that this place is important, and protecting our wild landscapes is a critical part of the way we live down here. So in July 19th, Nuestra Tierra, we're hosting our annual river float down the Rio, where we're going to share meals, laughs, get wet, and experience things that we don't have the privilege to year-round as others do across the nation.
Certainly a lot of folks in the area enjoy this time of year, so they can do something like that.
100%. I mean, it's expensive to keep kids busy, to talk as a parent, but you can pack a lunch, you can get your little float, and you can make some memories and have a good time.
Cool off with these triple-digit temperatures we're used to this time of year.
Yeah.
You work with a number of not only outdoor organizations, but also agencies at the federal level and public lands. I'm curious, how have the mass firings and the uncertainty around staffing at these places impacted your organization?
So Nuestra Tierra, we don't receive federal funding, so we're okay there. But I will talk about the partners first. Some of our closest partners across the nation, across New Mexico, do receive some of these funding, some of this type of funding. And I have seen people have to let their staff go, look for 0% interest loans, just to keep the work moving. And so feeling that in an emotional way, because we invest in our partners, in all relationships, a big priority for us. As we see our federal partners who have already been overworked and running under budget, having to take all these challenges on, not only hurts Nuestra Tierra, but I'm seeing it hurt our community. We're seeing public spaces closed. We're seeing less park rangers for maintenance, for safety, and that is having some serious effect on the families that just want to be outside and create memories.
You mentioned this a little bit, but how does your organization partner with indigenous communities and tribes and pueblos in our state to really meet the mission of connecting all the communities in our region?
So we have some really strong partners in the pueblos, for sure. I think one of the most recent examples, and something I'm very proud of, is our work in Chaco Canyon that is also taking on some hits. Nuestra Tierra Conservation Project, there was other organization buying billboards off I-25, scoring some opinion letters, letter to the editors, but rural broadband is a real issue for our pueblos and nations here in the state of New Mexico. And so just as a recent example, we partnered with some pretty amazing folks to do a radio tour in Dene to really get to the older generation, to the elders, because radio and access, just public lands at 30,000 feet, access is an issue everywhere, but just even access to the information. And so that is something that we've been really trying to prioritize, making sure that people are not only well informed, but have an avenue to activate their communities, push back and or champion issues that are moving forward.
How powerful has storytelling been for the work that you do?
At Nuestra Tierra, storytelling is a strategy, 100%. And I was actually thinking about this just the other night, so I appreciate this question. Have you heard of artivism?
I'd like to hear more about it.
Yeah, artivism. I just learned about it too. I was reading some book. But especially in the Latino culture, artivism has been an effective tactic to not only organize, not only to share speech, but to move the overall needle forward. Cesar Chavez, during that time, we remember the arts, right? We remember the murals. And so for us here in the 21st century of conservation, storytelling, videos, speaking engagements, earned and paid media is our way to get back to our roots of artivism, because this is an effective way the Latino community has always been able to activate the abuelitas and the neighbors and the tios and the tias. And so storytelling is a critical strategy for us.
So what are some of the things that you share with those lawmakers, not only at the state level, but also, of course, the federal level, who may have a giant say in the future of public lands in New Mexico and our borderland region? What are some of the stories you share?
Yeah, appreciate that. And I'll also just talk about one of our most recent examples. Up at the state legislature, Senate Bill 5, that was looking to really ask hard questions and reform the State Game Commission, and just state game and fish in general. For us, it was an opportunity to take the bro show out of game and fish. But we prioritized young kiddos, young women, and uplifted their stories. And there was one young woman in particular, when we were telling one of her stories, she said, "I want to share a poem about what hunting and fishing and camping means to me." And it was really powerful, and it was authentic. And it's those personal stories that our elected officials, our elected champions, really are hungry for. Not the acronyms, maybe not the economic statistics, but how does this really affect our families and the next generation? And so just as a recent example, very proud of that, and it was pretty fun to do.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Ángel Peña is Executive Director of the Nuestra Tierra Conservation Project. Again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for your time, Anthony.
And we want to thank you for joining us for an episode of Fronteras A Changing America. I'm Anthony Moreno. We'll see you next time.